Broadcasting live from the Immersturm Skull Cairn on the plain of Kaldheim. This is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome everybody to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham. Joining me is Cameron.
Hello.
And Nelson.
Hi there.
And that was the most metal land name out of this set, I just realized as it was coming out of my mouth.
It sounded deeply satisfying to say.
Yeah. Immersturm Skull Cairn.
Immersturm Skull Cairn.
Always sturm if you can sturm.
Yeah.
Normally you bury your skulls in a cairn. Making a cairn out of skulls, that's got to be like a six-head move, right?
Yeah. How many cairns were required to build the skull cairn?
I like the idea that it's not merely a cairn made of skulls, but a cairn to the honor of skulls. It's just like, check out these skulls.
How many skulls are you producing where you can have a cairn made out of them? It's like having, it seems like a testament to your civilization. It's like having a wing night at a bar. Right?
I mean, the Immersturm is the realm where it's just an endless battle. Well, I believe that's what Immersturm roughly translates to. It's just like endless war or endless
right.
conflict.
Wasn't this a plane chase card?
Yes, it was. Yeah. It was a plane chase plane.
Sweet.
It made everything very angry at one another. Flavor.
Nice. So have the plane chase players known about Kaldheim this whole time?
Well, I don't think they said Kaldheim originally. 1 second.
Yeah, let's find this plane that you're talking about, this plane card. Because I've played plane chase, and let me tell you, if you go Naya first turn, and you're playing two at a giant, and then you put all your lands into play, and then you plane chase away from Naya, your opponents don't usually want to play past turn 2. It's good times.
Right, so in Plane Chase, there's this amazing Raymond Swanland art. Of course, it goes sideways on the overlay. But yeah, it was called Immersturm on the plane of Vala, which has been like slightly retconned that like Vala is one of the realms of Kaldheim.
Ah.
Right. Kaldheim is like a mini multiverse, right? I saw someone tweet about that. You know, the realms are separate from each other, and you need some sort of power or magic to get from one to the other. You can't just take a boat.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. Sorry, there's a note on the MTG wiki here.
Perfect.
According to Ethan Fleischer, Vala still exists. It was originally part of Kaldheim, incorporating the realm of Immersturm before splitting off. So now there's an Immersturm on Kaldheim, and Vala exists as a separate plane with an Immersturm region remnant in it.
That does seem quite metal.
You lost me. I'm gone. I didn't even... catch me next week. I've also floated off and become my own plane.
Yeah, that seems needlessly into the weeds. But anyway, we're going to get into the weeds talking about Kaldheim Sealed. Well, I mean, Kaldheim in general, but we're going to talk a bit about the pre-release as we spend 5 minutes before we get to remind you that this show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. That lets them know that we sent you over there, and we continue to do so because we think they're great, and they're a bunch of good folks, and they do great customer service and have good prices on Magic cards.
You might say they're cool and good.
They are indeed cool and good, and if you tell them Loading Ready Run sent me button, please, they will give you a little 1-inch button, which I'm trying to figure out. I think we're just on the tail end of Omnath was ejected, so get in on that meme while people are still playing Among Us. And of course, this show is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun, and we thank you very much for it. Also, I don't know, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching it there.
Our next button's going to be just Bernie crossing his arms and it says nope.
Yeah, and it won't be available until like 6 months from now, so everybody will be like, oh right, that joke.
Oh yeah, what? That's an old ass meme. I remember that meme.
Hey,
yeah.
I actually understand that reference, right?
I actually know what the next button is because it's already made, and it's thankfully not tied to any length of time. Yeah,
a timeless one.
Are you going to share with us, or are you just going to flaunt your knowledge that you know what the next button is?
Well, I don't want to.
No spoilers.
Yeah, I don't want to give it away.
Wow. Well, I'm sitting here wondering too, everybody. I don't know either. What are we going to talk about, Graham? It's been 15 minutes. Let's get into the podcast.
We're going to talk about Kaldheim. So I've spent the last couple episodes going through a bunch of cool looking cards, and we're going to talk more about that, but also through the realm of, we did the pre-release last weekend, and it was super fun. I think this set is sweet, and it is, as I have alleged multiple times on the show, it is dense with things. You know, there's tribal synergies, there's snow, there's these new mechanics, there's if you cast 2 cards in a turn sub-theme, there's changelings and elves. There's a lot going on, and it doesn't feel bad. Like, it doesn't feel overwhelming.
The set has big October energy. I wonder if this set, like the sketches for it, started being planned out during the New World Order, like back when there was going to be 2 rotations a year. Remember when Khans of Tarkir first came out? Khans of Tarkir was only legal for 18 months, or was announced as only legal for 18 months or whatever. I can't remember if that second rotation ever happened. Maybe it happened once, but it was wildly unpopular. Even the announcement was wildly unpopular. Although I think a lot of standard grinders like myself thought it was great. Like, I was really looking forward to 2 rotations a year. But yeah, this set, Scryfall tweeted, I think, that 14,000 or more words, and the next closest is like 12,500. Like more words total across all the cards. I'm not sure if including flavor text or not, but the text boxes of all the cards add up to more words than every other set.
There's a 5 mana 5/5 in green, and I'm straining to think if there's any other vanilla creature.
Yeah, there's a lifelink bear in white. You know, there's some French vanilla stuff, but a bunch of them, I think partly because of snow, like it's a snow set. So when you're tweaking these abilities that everyone understands, like, you know, also among the green commons and uncommons, there's Boreal Outriders, first example I can see, where in every other set, it might just be, you know, creatures you control enter with an additional +1/+1 counter. But because it's like the snow twist, there's a lot of words to explain how if you just spent snow, then you get a +1/+1 counter.
Man, Boreal Outrider, I want to talk about this briefly. So 2 and a green for a 3/2 elf warrior. It's a snow creature. Looks gorgeous. I love the snow frame. This card, I had to like double check like 2 or 3 times while we were playing with it to make sure that I actually understood how it worked, because the way that it reads is maybe not specifically intuitive, but it says whenever you cast a creature spell, if snow of any of that spell's colors was spent to cast it, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. And the reminder that snow is mana from a snow source. So it's not just if you use snow to cast the creature spell, it's if the snow mana is snow mana of the same color as the creature. So if you have a snow-covered plains and you're casting a blue creature, that doesn't work. But if you have a snow-covered island and you're casting a blue creature, then you're using snow mana of the same color as the creature, then it works.
That seems a little overly complex. But then again, this is a very powerful effect.
Yeah, it helps if you end up with a Cavern of Souls and a snow forest or whatever, right? Because it means you can put the colored mana into the generic cost from your snow sources. Like your snow colored mana can come from a generic, or can be part of the generic payment, and then the colored payment can be from your Cavern of Souls, so the creature's still uncounterable. But yeah, it is a very complicated ability.
Right. Because you don't have to be explicitly paying for the colored pip. You could use, again, if we're saying we're casting a blue creature, you can pay that's like 2 into blue. You can pay for the blue pip with for the Cavern of Souls.
No, I'm wrong. The Cavern of Souls isn't as restrictive as I thought. I thought maybe you had to spend the colored mana on a colored pip from Cavern of Souls. So I take it back. Sorry, terrible example. Don't edit this out. Just let everyone know how dumb I am. It's fine.
Well, but still, the point is, you know, for whatever reason, it's needlessly complicated.
Maybe, yeah. There must be an example. There must be a reason why it says that, and not just if you spent snow to cast a creature spell.
Probably because that's too powerful.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, I think it's a fine restriction. I just think, like, once you know, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But I just think it's difficult to explain, and it's like, I don't know. I think it's a cool ability that maybe at some point I might have been, like, if I were editing the set, I might have been like, this is cool, but it's an absolute bear to explain, so maybe we don't do it.
I mean, it might also be a thing where it could put the kibosh on you getting that ability multiple times per turn, right? Like,
maybe. Yeah.
That might just pump the brakes on it a little bit and keep it out of, like, the realm of absurd mythic uncommons, right? Because clearly it's still quite good and a payoff for being in snow, but
it is good, yeah.
Like, just all your creatures suddenly get +1/+1 is probably too good for a 3 mana, 3/2.
I want to talk about a powerful uncommon that I had in my sealed deck.
Please do.
That ended up being very successful on more than one occasion. I mean, I have a couple uncommons in this deck I want to talk about, but in this instance, Doomscar Titan. So my deck, if you haven't watched the PPR, was green-black, but I was splashing red for my promo card, which was Waking the Trolls, a Carder Doomscourge, who's a fun legendary creature that has on the turn you play it, it forces your opponents to creatures to attack you, but then it has this other thing that just lasts forever. That's anytime any attacking creature dies, yours or theirs, you drain your opponent for 1, which is cool. But I was also splashing for this thing, Doomscar Titan. So it's 4 red for a 4/4. You can also foretell it, so it's got the foretell cost of 2, and then the actual foretell cast cost is 4 and a red. So it's easier to cast. It's less red intensive if you foretell it, which is why I was comfortable splashing it. And when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control, which includes itself, get +1/+0 and haste.
Beep, beep.
Yeah. You just sort of go, wide. You don't even have to go that wide. Like in limited, it was, I think I had at most 4 creatures, sometimes 3.
I was going to say having 3 on the board and then flopping this guy probably feels pretty good.
Well, this happened. Yeah, I just want to warn everyone, if you haven't watched the PPR and you're planning on it, the spoilers for the PPR are going to keep happening in this podcast. So pause now and watch the PPR if that's your plan. So I think game 1, I'm judging, you're playing against Kathleen and you played 3 creatures and then this, but then you attacked and she had a flash creature. And also I think you didn't realize that her, big common of the PPR, the white boast creature that untaps itself, was already a 6/6. So it felt kind of bad making everyone get +1/+0 when this only gave itself up to 5 power. But yeah, otherwise still a great card.
Also, what a great collection of sentences. That was a sealed game.
Yeah.
Right? Lots of stuff going on in the set.
Yeah. Overall, the matches seemed pretty sweet. Yeah. Why don't I go first so that we get the worst games out of the way? I want to talk about a powerful uncommon called Frenzied Raider. It's a red card. It's 1 red and 1 generic for a 2/2 Demon Berserker with just 1 triggered ability. Whenever you activate a boast ability, put a +1/+1 counter on Frenzied Raider.
Yeah, holy moly.
Yeah, I had one of these in my pool, and I had a very powerful red, or a probably good red Berserker rare that makes dragons. I did splash for that, and I splashed for Bergie the God because it seems like it has some synergies, Bergie, and on the backside of Bergie, you get to draw 2 cards a turn. Anyways, but I mostly played black-white. I had flyers, including a flying lifelink creature, and a bunch of what looked like good cards. But Ben Ulmer had 2 of these on turns 2 and then 3 after playing a turn 1 Dusk Wielder, which is a 1 black mana common Berserker with just a 1 generic boast ability. Target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, and it's a 1/2. So if you play that out on curve, you end up with 2 4/4s on your turn 3. You only have to put mana into the Dusk Wielder to activate boast. It can be any mana, and the Frenzy Raiders don't require any mana to get bigger. So turn 1 this. I'm pretty sure Ben won the die roll also. Maybe he didn't, I'm not sure. Anyways, and then turn 2 Raider, turn 3 Raider, attack boast. So now they're both 3/3s on turn 3. Yeah, Ben did go first. Then it's my turn 3. I finally have a card I can play. It's a 3/2 for 3. Perfectly fine way to open up a sealed game most of the time. And then on Ben's turn 4, they all get to attack. It's 2 4/4s and the Dusk Wielder. And then I think he also had a pump spell or he tapped my creature or something. So then I died on Ben's turn 5. And then on my next game, I'm mulligan to 5. But hey, Frenzied Raider, boast decks in draft. If you can do it, it is a real thing. It's terrifying. If you don't have removal or death touch creatures on the floor, or I don't know, some way to deal with these things, they're going to get real big real fast.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's a format that favors aggro, because that has connotations of original Zendikar or Amonkhet. Right, where, blocking was banned. But it really does feel like a format where you need to be doing something on 2.
Okay.
I think you need to be prepared to be playing Magic early and often.
Well, the thing about foretell is you're always going to have something to do on 2.
Right.
I found myself frequently not casting a creature, but always doing something on turn 2. And that can put you a little behind if you're up against that draw specifically.
Ben's draw in game 1 against me is sort of a stars align, best case scenario.
Yeah.
And obviously there's plenty of answers to it that I didn't have, but I still think that my keep of 5 lands, 3 drop, 4 drop, which is a 4/3 flying lifelinker, was pretty defensible. It didn't do anything on turn 2 though, and it was on the draw. So who knows? Maybe some players send that back.
I also had Dusk Wielder in my deck, not as a marquee card, but just it worked on a couple different axes of being an elf, which was like very, very a minor relevance in my deck, but also just being cheap because I had 2 of the Infernal Pets, which is a 2/2 for 3. It's an imp. And whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it gains flying until end of turn. So just having the Dusk Wielder, even not on turn 1, just as a little creature to trigger that was pretty relevant.
This thing is so terrifying. It's just munching on some butterflies or fairies.
Yeah, a fairy. Infernal Pet is quite interesting to me because, like, I read it and I did not see the word counter, right? Like, my brain deleted the word counter from it. And I'm like, okay, that seems fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's 1997 and this is a black creature, right? And then, yeah, no, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think these things could get away from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good card for an aggro deck, I think.
Yeah. I want to talk about another uncommon that I had, which, again, speaking of getting away from you, Spirit of the Alderguard, our good Kermode friend, the bear spirit. It's 3 and a green for a 0/4, and when it enters the battlefield, you search your library for a snow land, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. Point of note, doesn't say basic, any snow land, so you can get your duels. Doesn't go into the battlefield, but still. And then it gets +1/+0 for each other snow permanent you control. And I routinely had this thing at like a 5/4.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Pretty decent card.
I mean, even a 3/4 for 4 that searches you up a land is like, that's pretty good rate.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's going to be good enough for constructed, like 4/4 for 4 that draws you a card when it enters the battlefield. Maybe. Later in the game, it's an 8/4.
Yeah, like the Glittering Frost, which Paul has just brought up now. That's 2.
Yeah, I love that about Glittering Frost, that it itself is a snow permanent, and it makes because you should be targeting a non-snow land, it makes another land into a snow permanent. So yeah, it's a 2 for 1.
I would just like to give a big shout out to the all-star of my game, Tergrid, God of Fear.
Oh my God, Tergrid's wild.
Tergrid really got to show off at the PPR.
Yeah, Tergrid just styled on people. Me, first of all, I believe.
I was the first person to get owned by Tergrid.
Yeah, actually, though. Tergrid, 3 black. Her front side reads Menace. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And she's a 4/5 god. There are some very synergistic cards with this. I'd like to also give some attention to Skull Raid, which, if you're not familiar, is a 4 mana, it's one of these mind rot effects, right? Discard 2 cards, but it has more lines of text. If fewer than 2 cards were discarded this way, you draw cards equal to the difference. And it has Foretell for 1 and a black. So it's just a beating with Tergrid out on the battlefield, right? Things with Tergrid, these otherwise totally passive black effects suddenly just get away. They keep going and they get better and better. I don't even know how to describe it because I wasn't alive for long enough to really appreciate what was happening to me.
Man, Skull Raid is such a cool design. And let me talk about a play that happened in my match against Kathleen. She cast Skull Raid on me. I only have 2 cards in my hand. And one of them is, I think it's called Demonic Gifts. Yeah, it's 1 and a black. Instant. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield. So in the face of a mind rot, I would have just cast that and been like, well, I'm pitching these cards anyway, so I'm just going to cast this on this creature, and that, will potentially...
You get a fog out of it, kind of.
Yeah, sort of stave off the attacks, or I get to make some sort of trade potentially.
I think at the time, Axgard Braggart had been attacking and getting larger, so it's like you could have chumped at least.
Yeah, my plan, I think, was to try and do something with this and blocking the Braggart, if not trying to kill it or whatever. But then I had to make this decision where it's like, so do I do that for potentially 0 value, right? Like maybe this doesn't even change how she plays the turn. Or do I discard it so that she doesn't get to draw a card? which is what I ended up doing. I ended up not casting it and instead discarding it just because it wasn't going to my mind, wasn't going to have enough of an effect on the board to make it worthwhile. And it meant that she doesn't get to draw an extra card. So I think Skull Raid is very interesting.
I mentioned it just now too, but I wanted to briefly talk about Axgard Braggart. It's the very first card in collector order for the set. And It came up a lot. Basically, if you open, I would say 2 of these, it's a common. If you open 2 of them in your field, that alone is a push into white because it just can run the whole show by itself. It attacks and blocks. It doesn't have flying, but it just keeps getting bigger every turn, and your opponent's going to have to kill it or death touch it, or it'll just eventually run away with the game.
Yeah, this thing got unreasonably annoying.
Yeah. Skull Raid, just to return, I opened some packs for fun yesterday, and I got an aspect of Lamprey from Theros Beyond Death. And so it made me wonder, like, oh, okay, has there been a kind of sub-theme happening at WotC that I hadn't noticed where they're trying to make Mind Rots more playable? Aspect of Lamprey is also 4 mana, but it's enchantment. So it's a aura enchant creature, and it gives a creature lifelink. So your creature gets lifelink if they don't have any cards in hand, and also you get an enchantment fall if your opponent doesn't have any cards in hand. So those are like some pretty small upsides, but Skull Raid, like, not only did they make it a bit easier to cast with the foretell mechanic, but drawing cards instead of them discarding cards, that's a very exciting upside. And I think Skull Raid, you know, if it turns out by the end of the limited format not to be too much of a bummer, hopefully will be what we see kind of the bar for Mind Rot going forward, because I think just about everybody put their Skull Raids in their black decks, and we all played black. Like, we might have had every copy of Skull Raid that we opened sleeved up. I know I had a Skull Raid in my deck too.
I did not have a Skull Raid, and I felt its absence.
Right. But there wasn't one in your sideboard. That's all I'm saying.
No. Yes. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Did you? That's another thing we could talk about, actually. Everyone played black. Wait, now multiples of us opened Turgid.
Yeah.
I opened the Angel with Flying and Lifelink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Benjamin opened Draugr Necromancer.
In a limited environment, when you are seeing the cards for the first time, you're probably going to bank on the color that offers you conditionless removal, right?
Yeah.
Or non-conditional removal. Just kind of like out of a sense of planning for the worst, right? Like, if you see Poison the Cup, I think it's probably a fairly strong push into black.
For sure. Poison the Cup, new murder. It's just murder, but also if it was foretold, scry 2 and has a foretell of 1 generic and a black. So you can either keep in your hand and always have it available for 3 mana, or you can tuck it away for 2 mana, and then you'll only regret it if you need to kill something later that turn. So I guess maybe just post-combat main phase, you know, foretell, and then it's only your own end step where you might get bitten.
It's premeditated murder.
That's right. We got a nickname for it already. Premeditated murder.
I ended up in black because I had 3 legendary creatures that seemed interesting that were gold cards, but that all featured black. I already mentioned Carter. I had Harald, King of Skemfar, who whiffed every single time in my deck. He was just a 3/2 menace that like would maybe draw something, but I wasn't banking on the draw ability.
I think you cast him about 6 times and he never drew anything, right? No,
Yes.
you went the whole pre-release. We talked about it. Yeah, you definitely went the whole pre-release without him drawing anything.
Yeah, and then I had Seraph, Realm Eater, the big wolf, which was a 3/3, and whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Seraph, and then at the beginning of the upkeep, if Seraph has 1 or more counters, you can choose to remove all of them. If you do, you exile each other non-land permanent on both sides of the table with CMC less than or equal to the number of counters that you removed, which is an interesting wrath. That never happened, or I never did that. I just had Seraph be a big beater.
Yeah, I mean, like, what if Ratchet Bomb was also a 3/3?
I think we're going to go with Pernicious Dog.
Ooh.
That's
like
very good.
You're just kind of like stacking 1/1 counters on Seraph's nose, being like, no. No. Okay. Right, and Seraph's like, oh. Right. But like, I remember in your match against Kathleen, she had dunked Seraph in gold, the bound in gold, the white pacifism effect, and it's just like you're staring at this thing getting bigger and bigger, thinking like, well, I can't even lock it down, right? Mm-hmm. You have to kill it.
Circling back to Turgid for a second too, it wasn't me, but I think Adam had Turgid's Shadow. Someone had Turgid's Shadow, which is Barter in Blood.
Sure did.
Only it's Barter in Blood at instant speed, so it costs 3 generic instead of 2 generic and 2 black, so 5 mana for instant. But you can foretell it, and then you get back down to 4 mana. So this is a pretty exciting card, period. But also, if you have Turgid out, it's like, you know, instead of a wrath, it's just you steal all their stuff. Like you put your stuff in the bin and you put their stuff on your side.
Sure do. You sure do. Adam went Turgid, and then I was like, well, I gotta, like, the insidious thing is that Turgid has menace, right? So she incentivizes you to go wide to try to rumble with her, right?
Yeah.
Because you need a couple of creatures to even block her. And then Turgid's Shadow comes out and punishes you for it. And then you lose the game. And thousands of people are watching this happen. Oh, Thousands. Millions by now. Millions of people. We're just like, man, did you see Cameron get utterly pwned at the PPR? It was incredible. It was a thing of beauty.
Hey, Cameron, come on.
Just walked right into it.
I definitely stole the title this time. I fully stole the crown. So
no, fair enough. I'm happy. But I felt that I put in a good showing. Like we made a sport of it, I feel.
You know, it's true actually. I got like, you know, crushed by the door trap immediately. But you made it all the way into the demon's lair and then like stretched over the rack and like burned alive. And it was like a longer drawn out thing. So we took different sides of the getting completely pulverized.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I feel like I walked into the lair and was like, saw the altar and was like, oh, on here? Just put my head on this?
Is this
okay.
right? Hello?
Okay.
Bueller?
Okay. I'll just wait here then.
And now you're just gonna. Oh, okay, yeah. No, definitely make sure it's sharp.
I'll wait. Take your time. Sharpen it up.
I'm in no rush.
I'm not going anywhere. Okay, another great black card I saw put in work. I can't remember what the matchup was, but I think either Cameron or Graham was the opponent. Someone had Blood Sky Berserker, 1 generic and 1 black for a 1/1 human berserker. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this. It gains menace this turn.
Yeah, I got very lucky with a draw.
Was this Kathleen?
No, this was Wheeler. This was game 1 against Wheeler, where it just happened to outpace him successfully. Like I played Blood Sky Berserker on 2, and then I think turn 3 was another 2-drop and that Dusk Wielder that we mentioned. And so it's like, here's a 3/3. And then I was just able, I mean, the thing got up to a 7/7.
Yeah.
And quickly enough that like when it was a 5/5, Wheeler's creatures only had 4 power. When it was a 7/7, his creatures only had like 5 or 6 power. And it was just like, what do you do? You know, and he didn't draw the removal he needed, and Blood Sky Berserker just ran away with that game.
Yeah, I could definitely see this looking really good next to in Constructed, looking next to, you know, a lot of 1 and 2 drops and maybe some Call of the, the Luris spell. It's like 3 mana and bring 2 creatures back. Call of the Death Dweller. I forget, but it's instant. It's from Ikoria and it already gets played in red black a fair bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's only a 2 mana cost card, but it's kind of, you know, it's a bit of a Tarmogoyf variant, right? You've got to build up to it, and you can only grow it by 2 per turn. But yeah, if you're just next to a lot of Call of the Death Dweller, thank you. You know, this and another Dusk Wielder or whatever, your Gutter Bones, whatever your choice is of 1-drop next to Blood Sky Berserker could look pretty good.
The other one that pulled me into making this deck with black, because I had 2 of them. I had 2 of the pet too, the imps, but I had 2 Carfell Kennel Masters, which is just, I mean, there was the clip from Adam during the deck building when he read it for the first time, when he was just like, I'm going to lose to this card.
Yeah.
Because it's 4 and a black for a 4/4, which is not terrible, zombie berserker. And when it enters the battlefield, up to 2 target creatures each get +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn. So you just cast it, you got this 4/4 to block, and you're like, all right, well, these 2 other creatures, they're attacking. I don't actually care what you do because they're indestructible. So these things are coming in.
Yeah. I really enjoy the image of this guy showing up being like, all right, you and you are dogs now. Get in there. And like this berserker is like, I guess, okay, sure thing, zombie. I guess I'm a dog now. I didn't even know you could talk, but okay. Boof.
Boof.
Did anyone play any vehicles?
No, I did not.
I started my deck out with a Funeral Longboat and a Raider's Carve, but then after losing to the Berserkers, I cut them because they're not exactly creatures.
Yeah.
Couldn't reliably trade with Dusk Wielder.
I ended up cutting the Longboat myself.
Okay, so yeah, I guess these vehicles are probably quite balanced. Also on the common uncommon artifacts page, I'd like to talk about Ruined Crown. This one seemed pretty good, and well, again, not fast enough to stem the Ben Ulmer beats. I did keep it in. It's pretty sweet because it draws a card, you know, as long as you've got a rune in your deck. This is 3 generic. Not sure if we talked about it already on a podcast, but it turned out to be quite good. When it enters the battlefield, search your library, hand or graveyard for a rune and put it onto the battlefield attached to this crown. If you search your library this way, shuffle it, and it gives a creature +1/+1 and equips for 2 generic. So a pretty expensive Land and Scimitar, but with an upside. A couple upsides, really. It draws a card when it enters the battlefield because all the runes draw you a card. Don't play it in your deck if you don't have a rune. But then your creature also gets Death Touch or Lifelink or whatever it is that your rune provides. And Kathleen, I think, had the white and black runes in her deck. I just had the black rune. But honestly, I would say any rune you have, it's fine. As long as you have one rune, this thing's probably worth playing.
Mm-hmm. Especially because it like searches hand and graveyard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hand is maybe the worst case scenario because the card's just replacing. It's like you get one card back from 2 cards in your hand, but it still saves you on mana, you know?
Yeah.
Advances your plan. But yeah, the graveyard's maybe the spiciest one. If you manage to like play your rune down on a creature, the creature dies, and then later you play your runed crown, you get your rune back. Like, whoa. Marshall Sutcliffe is just, bouncing up and down in his chair over that play. One
card I would like to talk about that I didn't actually get to ever play, but I wanted to desperately, was Eradicator Valkyrie.
Oh, yeah.
I was so excited to sleeve this up, and then she just never turned up to work.
I played her in the game where I got run over.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she wasn't enough. I was like, okay, these things are big, but I have a 4-mana, 4/3 flying lifelink. That's going to be good enough, right? And I think Ben just burned her or tapped her or something. Yeah. But yeah, I got to cast her at least. She showed up on the card reader for a second.
Yeah, like Eradicator Valkyrie is a 4-mana, 2 and 2 black, Angel Berserker. You get a 4/3 body with flying lifelink and hexproof from Planeswalkers. She also has Boast. For 1 and a black, sacrifice a creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. This seems good. I kind of want to sleeve this up for Islander Aristocrats. I think she might make the cut. Because that deck is like a little hurting for 4-mana Haymakers. It's got Butcher of the Horde and Falconwrath Aristocrat. Those both can have haste. And also it has Yawgmoth. But like, I like the cut of Eradicator Valkyrie's Jib, right? Because it comes with, is it attrition? Is that what this is?
No, I think with attrition you get to target, but this is still good. It's kind of like Innocent Blood, but they can sacrifice a planeswalker.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's definitely the like English word attrition is what's going on here, right? Like both sides suffering losses. That's what attrition means, right?
So like, flopping this on 4 and then like swinging on 5, boasting, getting like value off of one of your creature deaths and a blood artist, it would feel really good.
Yeah, I definitely like this card. I think it's totally fine for Constructed. You should try it out. But while we're talking about Falconwrath Aristocrat, we've got to mention Immersturm Predator, right?
Oh, yeah, the vampire dragon?
Yeah.
I don't know who's responsible for creating a vampire dragon, but like, buddy.
Well, it's when a vampire really loves a dragon. You see, Cameron. Sorry. I got to practice. I got to practice for this conversation. Graham's going to have it a year before me, hopefully, so he can just give me tips. 2 generic and a black and a red for a vampire dragon. 3/3 with flying. Whenever this becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target card from any graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on this. Also, sacrifice another one of your creatures. This gains indestructible until end of turn and tap it. So similar to Falconwrath Aristocrat, right? Falconwrath Aristocrat didn't get to mess up their graveyards, but it did have haste. This doesn't have haste.
Yeah, like the thing with Falconwrath Aristocrat is that haste actually quite important to turning games around. But like I also like this thing quite a lot. Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan.
Well, can we stay on the multicolored page for a second?
Please, let's.
Graham, talk to us about your experience with Waking the Trolls. Get off your keyboard, everybody. Get off your keyboard. Stop it.
I had two very different experiences with this card. So let me tell you what it does. 4 red-green for a saga. Chapter 1, destroy target land. Chapter 2, put target land from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And Chapter 3, choose target opponent. If they control fewer lands than you, create a number of 4/4 green troll warrior creature tokens with trample equal to the difference. So I just thought this would be fun, and it was my promo card. So I was like, all right, sure, let's see how this goes. So it always destroyed a land. That's fine. I was able to get Wheeler more impressively because he had a land with Glimmering Frost that we talked about it earlier, the snow enchantment on it.
2 for 1.
So I was able to get 2 mana off of him, which was nice. And then the second ability, getting target land from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So you can steal your opponent's land, or you could get something back from your own graveyard, which I think I did once because I had a land in my bin somehow, I think because a creature died that made both players mill, and the land in my graveyard was snow. So I wanted to get that one back. So that's fine. And it just goes onto the battlefield, not tapped unless the land itself enters tapped, but it doesn't enter tapped by virtue of this card. And then the third step So in one instance, very like grandly and impressively, I was able to make, I think, 3, maybe 4 trolls against Kathleen, who had been like really, really land screwed in our third game. But against Wheeler, I had the situation where I had accelerated this out. I had a Glittering Frost of my own. I had a Replicating Ring. And so he had like 2 or 3 more lands than me. I think I'm misremembering when this game was. I think I'm confusing my opponents. I probably cast this spell more than twice. So ignore the specifics. But the point is, there was a situation where all this card did was destroy a land and then get me a land back from, I think, my own graveyard. And then it was like, cool, chapter 3. How many lands do you have? 3 more than me? Great. So nothing happens.
Yeah, I think actually the match against Kathleen in round 1, like I think both scenarios did happen, because I remember the first time you cast it, you counted her lands, and then you explained to chat, like, okay, so I need to make my next land drop, and I need Kathleen to not have any more lands in hand or have any lands on top of her library for like 2 turns, and then I'll be able to make 1/4/4. And then you're like, blow up your land, and then you said go, and then she's like, okay, swamp, go. I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah. So this doesn't always make a creature, but in the situation where it makes a creature, it's like the first time you made creatures, you made 3 of them. And I said, oh, that card can do that. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, that cute land destruction card that gets you a land. That's fun. It's neat that they made Monvuli Acid Moss, which is a card many of us know and love from Time Spirals. Like they made that a 6-mana saga. That's okay, because, you know, like land destruction's kind of busted. You don't make it good. And then one time you made 3 4/4s, and I was like, oh, that card can make 3 4/4s. I like didn't realize that at all after the first time reading it.
I think if you can accelerate it out in a way that involves lands, like if you're
the rampant growth, Farseek plan, cultivate plan.
Rampant growth or explore, or if you're, I don't know, like one of those creatures that lets you play more than 1 land or something. Obviously not in Kaldheim Limited, but if you can do that, then that's pretty sweet. Or if you can even ramp this out with mana rocks, and then on the turn in between chapters 1 and 3, then do something to get yourself some more lands, then that's pretty cool. But yeah, you can't just like ramp this out with mana rocks, because then it's like, well, I destroyed your land and I got another land, and that was not worth 6 mana.
Worst Vintage Cube 2 Black Lotus's turn 1 ever.
Yeah. But absolutely agree. You want to be playing this with like Farseek. You know, explore effects, cultivate, as you said.
Mm-hmm. I saw Wheeler play the Bears of Lityara, I think 2 or 3 times, and every time it was just to scathe zombies, because if you don't have another big creature and you play this down and they manage to kill the shapeshifter token right away, and you don't have another shapeshifter, you know, you can blank it all, right? Like say you have 0 creatures and you play Bears of Lityara, you make a 2/2, you pass, they shock it, you untap, the second chapter doesn't do anything, you pass, you play a 3/3 or whatever, and then you untap, the third chapter does nothing. So we saw that happen, but this card also seems like it's still definitely worth playing. You know, just some creatures are Spellskite, and that's good enough. Any other important signpost uncommons that we saw put in some work? Oh, I had to like really figure out and read 3 times, and it was funny because it was like the all judge match. It was Wheeler versus Surge, and Surge has Agar the Freezing Flame, and I kept having to be like, you know, answering another question or like clicking between windows to answer something in Discord, and then coming back and being like, okay, wait, so what does this do? So a generic blue-red for a 3/3, legendary creature, giant wizard. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt, so whenever a creature or planeswalker, not them, one of their permanents is dealt excess damage, you gotta look that up, comma. If a giant wizard or spell you control dealt damage to it this turn, draw a card. So that, again, this is kind of like that other green 3/2 for 3 we were reading, where it's like this ability is very complicated. You know, they managed to template it such that the words fit onto the card. But basically, excess damage is more than the toughness or loyalty counters of the creature in question. So if you attack with Agar and they block with a 3/2, right, you draw a card. If you have Agar and you shock their 1/1, you draw a card. If you Banefire their Planeswalker with 4 loyalty for 5 damage, you draw a card. If you Grim Lavamancer their 1/1, you draw a card. Or if you deal some damage to it that doesn't kill it, and then later the creature gets dealt damage that ends up being excess, you draw a card. So I don't know, good examples of that, maybe like you cast say Blazing Volley pre-combat, you deal 1 damage to all their creatures, and then you attack And it might not be the giants or the wizards that deal the combat damage. Like say you attack with a bunch of worms after that, or you attack with a bunch of trolls and then they block and their creatures take excess damage. But your spell dealt damage this turn. Now you draw a card for each one of those creatures that took excess damage.
Looking at this, Agar, I need you to meet my friend Blasphemous Act.
Exactly.
Right? Like, this is all I want to have happen now. And like, actually, no, this is going to happen to me in a Commander game.
Sure.
Right? Like, we can all see this one coming a mile away. Somebody like casts Agar and then starts counting permanents. Oh, no. Right? And then they just wrath the board, and that's fine, and then draw a bunch of cards, and you're like, okay, well, that wasn't the worst thing to ever happen to me. And then the next turn happens.
I did find it odd that on an uncommon, there was no reminder text for what that means. It was just, they so casually threw it out there, right? It's just like, so yeah, anything that causes excess damage, you draw a card. Wait, what? Yeah, excess damage. I mean, like, you think about it for like 5 seconds and you're like, oh, okay, I think I intuitively can figure out what this means. But I did find it weird just reading that the first time when it's like, what is that? I've never seen them use that phrase before.
We just had flame spill, so maybe that helps, like the timing of it, and maybe it's going to be something we see more often. But yes, this definitely looks like easier than it is to figure out.
Like, I feel that we joked a lot about unstable providing or working in the space of like having backdoor pilots for new mechanics. But I think another function that it fulfilled that we didn't appreciate at the time was just like saying things and seeing what players, where players will go, oh, I get it.
Right.
Like, testing how good our intuition is for what they can print on a card and have players understand. Right. And I think Agar is a good example of like that paying off. Like, you can look at Agar and be like, excess damage, huh? Does that mean this? And Agar says, yeah, it means what you think it means. It means what it sounds like it means, even if it's not capital excess, capital damage. Right.
Yeah. Can we talk about Card Doer Doom Scourge for a second? Because this was another interesting one that sort of required carefully going through the abilities. 2 generic and black-red for a legendary Demon Berserker. When it enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. So 2 different functionalities, whether you're playing a regular 1v1 or a group game. And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And again, this ability functions differently on, everyone's turn. It just refers to attacking creatures, anyone's attacking creatures. So you can use it to push through extra damage immediately on your own turn. You can cast it and then attack, and then, your creatures are all going to be worth at least, either their power or 1 point of life. And you can also use it as a nettling imp because it does that. And I think, Graham, you played this? Maybe multiple people played this?
Yeah. I mentioned it briefly earlier.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's fine. It's just like the wording is odd because it mentions each combat, but that is just in the very outside instance that there's more than 1 combat per turn. Because that first ability only happens once. It's just until your next turn. Right. Creatures your opponents control. Obviously, like you said, in 1v1, that's 1 turn. In a Commander game or something, that'll be a complete loop of the table, right? In fact, it's great in Commander because they have to attack people other than you, which is just great for you. But yeah, that other ability just sits there the whole time, and it's like any attacking creature, yours or theirs, and it's wild. It's just, I think it's neat that you can be like, all right, well, I'm going to play Carter and pass, and then they have to attack into you, and so you can make good blocks, and you get to presumably eat stuff, and so you're eating attacking creatures. And then on your turn, you get to just presumably fully slam into them, and you don't really care if they've played a blocker in the interim, because if one of your attacking creatures dies, you get to drain them again. So, it all...
Yeah.
He's a tiny little package, this Demon Berserker.
Probably quite a fine general, like a fine commander. Just recurring, making all the creatures that you don't control kill each other in combat just seems sweet.
Yeah. Be a good one for those vows, the commander cards, vows where you make creatures bigger, but they can't attack you.
Absolutely.
What did we call that guy?
Just Cardor. We just kept calling him Cardor because that's almost his name, right?
Yeah. No, but like there was also that cycle of commander cards with Brody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what do we call the guy in the picture of the enchantments?
Yeah.
Those aren't the vows. Those are the curses.
Curses, right.
Yeah, with the like hipster with the undercut, right?
Yeah, the guy who looks like he won't shut up.
Yeah.
And all his buddies are like, dude, just stop.
He also he kind of looks like he's like always trying to get the waitress's attention, and he's kind of a jerk about it.
Mm-hmm,
you know, the red one's probably the best because I think it's in a bar. Oh no, not in a bar. Okay, sorry, Paul. Is there one of them where he's in a bar?
Yeah, definitely.
Is the blue one, he's like, can't stop talking? Wasn't one of them is actually that, yes, it's Verbosity.
Yeah, there it is.
One of them actually is that he can't stop talking, right?
Right. Curse of Verbosity, 2 in a blue or a curse.
Yeah, it's just this guy's bogus journey.
Whenever enchanted players attack, draw a card. Each opponent attacking that player does the same. So this also, actually, these curses would actually get into this Carter deck because they encourage these other players to attack each other.
Yeah, it's just like Carter's bogus journey.
I love it. All right, Nelson, you had one more thing you wanted to talk about before we wrap up for this week?
Yeah, well, we're just at the end of the podcast, so I thought I'd talk about the very end of the PPR where we got to see Essica's Chariot do its thing. This is Cat Car, 3 generic and a green for a legendary vehicle. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 2/2 green cat creatures, so that's 4 power of cats. It has crew 4. Convenient. And whenever Essica's Chariot attacks, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. What? And it's a 4/4 when you turns into a creature. So yeah, this thing doesn't need any help winning a game. It can just win a game of limited on its own. Although clearly we've learned that if you wait until turn 4 to cast it, that's not going to be good enough. But yeah, if you're in a stable game, this will break it wide open. It can clone copies. It can make tokens every turn, provided you already have a token, and it doesn't have to make copies of the cats, although that's good enough most of the time, I imagine.
I love the if I fits, I sits art here. It's they're so cozy.
Yeah, big question of whether the cats are going to pull the wagon eventually, or if something else pulls the wagon drives itself and the cats get to sit in it. Oh yeah, the showcase frame has an entirely different vibe, doesn't it? I hadn't seen that yet.
I think the intent is that the cats are going to pull the chariot.
Okay, and Essica will sit in the chair because Essica's the green god, right? Or one of the gods?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yes.
I like the idea then that on the regular card frame, that's a human-sized chariot, and that these look like house cats, but they're just enormous.
Yeah, we saw a card like this in Throne of Eldraine that made mice, but it was like an uncommon, like a 5-mana 4/4, and it crewed, and it had some other ability. It made some mice when it came in.
Yeah, Cinderella's pumpkin carriage.
Exactly. It could drive the carriage around by itself, but it certainly wasn't the pushed kind of bomb that this thing is.
I mean, yeah, this was another like read the card moment because I was like, okay, so it's a chariot and it makes two 2/2s. Okay, yikes. All right, sure, but this is doable because I'm either getting attacked by 2 2/2s or they are crewing this 4/4. Okay, I can handle this.
Yeah, like to me, limited bomb without the second ability. Yeah,
the second ability I was not prepared for, nor had I adequately read, and didn't realize that he was just going to get to keep making more and more cats every turn.
Yeah, I think without making more cats every turn, we already have a limited bomb, like a card that could be a rare, would be a first pick in limited. 8 power essentially for 4 mana. You just can't attack with it all right away. But with the added creating tokens, I wonder if this is a constructed card.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a bad sense of that.
Like, is it a Titan?
Oh, dang.
Like, it's for 4 mana 4/4. It's not a 6 mana 6/6, but like it does something every turn. Casts a little spell.
Vehicle Titan.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can put it next to other tokens that are bigger, they don't even have to be creatures. You can make treasures with it. You could make shards in a Bant deck or something. In Modern, you could make clues or what have you.
That is fascinating.
You know what else is fascinating? Buying cards from cardkingdom.com /LRR. It's fascinating that they'll know we sent you.
Beautiful. I love it.
It's fascinating that you can get sweet sealed product from older sets anywhere in the world, or even standard sets if you're living in America, and you can get singles anywhere in the world. It's fascinating that the button that you can get if you tell them we sent you currently says On Math was ejected.
It's also fascinating that you can support us directly on Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. At least I think it's neat.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think we all agree that that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for Tap Tap Concede this week. Next week, we will be talking about some of the real-world origins of the cards in the set. Like we've done for Theros and Eldraine and other sets like that, sort of, semi top-down design. We're going to be looking at sort of the real-life Scandinavian mythos and what cards in the set are pulled sort of directly from that. I think it's going to be an interesting time.
Is that happening next week already?
I think so. I mean,
because I actually think it is going to be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've been provided with an extensive spreadsheet of notes.
Awesome.
So that is going to be that, and that's going to do it for this week. As always, I have been Graham, joined by Cameron.
It's true.
And Nelson.
Still here.
And Jordan edits these. Paul was running the card reader today. Heather does podcast admin. And we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.